Chuck Wagon instant dinner for dogs. Just the right helpings of what dogs like.
I'm gonna get myself a modem. 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 Hello and welcome to Lunch Therapy. I am your host, Joel Marshall. Today is Interview Friday, and we've got a great guest today. We've got Dr. Jill Goldman here. She's an animal behaviorist. So get your pet questions ready because we're going to learn about how to communicate with our pets. Todd Lee is here. I imagine being an animal behaviorist is more difficult than being a human behaviorist due to a lack of communication. I think that's very true. Sometimes our pets are talking to us and we can't figure out what they're saying, or we maybe misinterpret them and act on what we think they're trying to say because we're trying to associate them with our own human behavior, which is different than animal behavior. Hoy, everybody. Great to see everybody here in the chat room. We're also going out to TikTok today, so that's kind of interesting. You remember that commercial, the Chuck Wagon? Yeah, that was a good one. I don't know if it was good food, but it was a good commercial. Richard is here. Hello, hummingbirds. How long time no see. Richard the crooner is in the house. Richard is an amazing singer. Check him out in the valley. Richard the crooner. Good to see everybody here today. This is a very interactive show, so if you have some questions that you want to bring up about your pets, please do so. We can put the comments at the bottom of the screen. We can ask Jill questions. So let's get on with it. This is Interview Friday, independent media, run by Patreons. So a lot of you are Patreons out there. Please go to patreon.com/Joel Marshall and you can support the show. Like, let's say you've got all kinds of streaming services that you pay for. Maybe an Amazon or something, you've got streaming services you don't even know about. You can go in to the settings. You can find out what you're paying for that you don't want to be paying for and stop doing that. And then come on over to patreon.com/Joel Marshall. You can subscribe to the show, support the show. These below are people that support the show currently. And you can pay like $3 a month, $5 a month, $10,000 a month, or even nothing if you want, just to be a part of what we call the hummingbird community. We have a show on Tuesdays and we have a show on Fridays. Fridays we interview remarkable people. Today is no exception. We've got Dr. Jill Goldman on the show. So let's get into this. First we breathe. So this is part of the show where we kind of prepare by taking 3 deep breaths and feeling our feet on the floor. And we're assisted by healing vibrations. That is Mr. Schumacher back there and his cat Perseus. Travis Schumacher and Perseus. Perseus loves the sound bowls. Just sleeps through the whole thing. In through the nose, out through the toes. Take a deep breath, hold it. Let it go. This is the way we relax our nervous systems here. In through the nose, out through the toes. Hold it. Let it go. In through the nose, out through the toes. Let it go. God says 10K a month. Always good to aim high. Yeah, if somebody wants to contribute 10K a month, I'm all for it. Even if they do it for 1 month, that would be pretty good. Just Jay, comedian, he's here. Jay Patterson, she's also the host on Tuesday, the co-host. She has a cat named Sugar Kitty. Camel is asking, do you have any questions from Sugar Kitty? Yeah, that'd be good to know, because Sugar Kitty lives with dogs. And I don't know. We'll have to ask about that as well. Anyway, let's move on. Just a little bit of music for us. This is Marcel Hutter. Scott Townsend. Yeah, good to see you. I'm going to be on Scott's show, The Comedy Minute. I don't know, probably this week. I'm not sure, but he's a remarkable guy. So is Marcel here playing the handpan. Got myself a handpan recently. Really builds respect for these people who play this instrument. It is something else. This is how I relax. I wonder how animals relax. Like, what do they do to maintain their equilibrium? Probably nature. Probably has something to do with nature. I also wonder, my cats are like housebound. How do they get their nature? Things to think about. Thank you, Marcel Hutter. Right. So here I am in Malibu, California, hanging out with my Trans Am, my virtual Trans Am, just like the one in the movies. Today's guest is someone who quite literally knew her life's calling before any of us figured out how to tie our shoes. Her name is Jill Goldman. She is a certified applied animal behaviorist and court-qualified animal behavior expert. She grew up in Montreal. At the age of 5, she realized that she related really well with animals. And by 13, she had decided she would become an animal behaviorist. I couldn't even pronounce animal behaviorist up until like an hour ago, so I don't know. I mean, it's pretty amazing. I don't know, this must have been an amazing kid. Her journey started in psychology, studying laboratory animals, and then took her to Nova Scotia, where she earned her master's degree studying the behavior of wolves. From there, she moved to Toronto to complete her PhD studying monkeys and birds at York University and the Toronto Zoo. She went on to complete her postdoctoral work in New York City at the ASPCA and the Central Park Zoo, where she worked hands-on with dogs, cats, monkeys, rabbits, farm animals, exotic animals. And after a 2-year clinical residency, she moved to Southern California, where she now works with shelters, private clients, attorneys, I guess as an expert, from her Beverly Hills-based behavior practice. There's a link in the show notes to her website, too, if you want her services. She works with animals and their humans through house calls, virtual sessions across U.S., Canada, Europe. She also serves as an expert witness. She's regularly featured on television and lectures at universities, shelters, clinics, and conferences. And at the heart of her work is one simple but powerful belief: every animal is unique. There's no cookie-cutter approach. She treats each case understanding the way animals look at the world, their Umwelt. That sounds like a German word, I'm not sure, but it means the way animals look at the world. Matt Wright says, is there a recorded incident of monkeys riding wolves? It's a good question. We'll have to ask her that. All right, let's get into this Interview Friday. Welcome.
I'm Dr. Jill Goldman. I'm an animal behaviorist and comparative psychologist. I have a PhD in primate communication, a master's of science in wolf communication. I listen to what the animals are saying, I watch what the animals are doing, and I translate that for people to help resolve any behavioral issues the animals may be having.
Welcome to Lunch Therapy, Dr. Jill Goldman.
Good afternoon, Joel. I'm very impressed with the introduction.
Why, thank you.
Very
I'm
well
so
done.
glad.
Thank
I'm
you
so
so much.
glad. I'm so glad. Well, I mean, you're an amazing person. I mean, what the heck? Can you tell us a little bit about that? Like when you were a little kid, like what made you say, I want to be an animal behaviorist? And how did you go about doing that?
The belief in knowing what I wanted to do came instinctually. So
Really?
I just was born with the belief that that's what I was going to do. And then I became a huge fanatic of Born Free, the movie,
Oh, yeah.
the
Born
LP.
free.
Play it and cry and play it and play it and cry downstairs in the basement. And it was at that moment that I knew that in some way I was going to work with animals to make their lives better.
That is cool. So when you went to college, did you know, like right when you went into college, you were like, this is what I want to study, and you were just, but did you have any idea that you were going to work with pets, or were you going to live with the wolves? What happened?
So the field of animal behavior was slow to come to North America. It was more advanced in Europe. So while I was in Canada, it was not as ethologically based, which means that animals were being studied in a natural environment. It was more traditional lab experiments and observing animals in how they solved problems and how they dealt with um, constructed environments, as opposed to just allowing them to behave naturally and to understand their behavior within their world. So it took a while. I started with psychology and animal behavior, psychology in undergraduate school, and it was mostly lab animals, rats and mice. And I was not happy doing the type of experiments that were required of me to obtain my degree. But you do what you need to do in order to get where you want to go. So at the same time, I was looking at other avenues, and it turned out that the American universities were a little bit more progressive in the way that they were looking at animal behavior, but the cost was it was cost prohibitive at the time. Fortunately, I got very lucky in meeting a group of people at Dalhousie University in Halifax, Nova Scotia, that were studying the natural behavior of wolves in a little town called, well, the little outside of Halifax called Shubenacadie. And it was
Shubenacadie. Wow, I like that.
Shubenacadie,
I like that
super
name.
great place. Dalhousie University had a compound there where they had wolf reared and hand reared wolves. So the wolf reared wolves lived in their own group, and we were able to study how they would work among themselves, communicate with each other, raise their pups together, all the things that wolves would do in nature as best as we could in captivity. The hand-reared wolves were a small subsection that were reared with human touch, human socialization. And there were some students who studied the difference between those two groups. I had the good fortune of studying the wolf-reared wolves, and my focus of study was the communication between mother and pups inside the den, which is unusual because you're unable to do that in the wild, obviously. And in the wild, you can't get very close to wolves. They're very skittish, they're very timid. We have a small subsection of what we perceive wolves to be. the howl, which is a long distance communication call that you can get recorded from a distance. But they do also have vocal types that are emitted and they're close together. And that's very hard to get in the wild because they won't let you near them. So we had a fortunate design where we were able to record the behavior video and audio recording inside the wolf den, Doug den.
I
So the
saw
wolf
that
would,
you were putting in like VHS tapes and have to keep
yes.
replacing them. That's
Well,
wild.
that was the olden days. Yeah,
Yeah.
we've got some teeth since then. So I would have to go a couple of times throughout the night to change the tapes. And they knew where I was, and I preferred to visit the den during the night rather than during the day because that would make me ignorant to how close they were to me.
Mhm.
But they are super intelligent and they pretty much stay away if they know they're not threatened.
Hmm.
And they knew we weren't going to, me in person, weren't going to hurt their pups. But once in a while, you would hear a bark howl, which is not as common as the howl that we know of. But the bark howl is a signal that tells everybody in the group, okay, there's danger approaching, be aware. Because if a human is approaching the very vulnerable den site, then the whole family becomes alert. So we were able to obtain the activity inside the den, not only between the neonatal pups and the mother, but also an auntie comes in at the third week, fourth week, fifth week, and also helps the mom with tending and caring for the puppies. The most fascinating research that I was able to do and information that I was able to obtain was that the pups can differentiate between these close contact squeaks made between from the mother versus the rest of the pack, which is a very adaptive behavior because what it does is it says it is safe to come outside the den when mom is calling you, but do not exit the den when someone else is calling you. So even at 5 weeks, these puppies were able to discriminate the different frequency, the acoustic spectrum of these squeaks and tell the difference between mom and the rest of the pack,
Wow.
which you're not able to do in the wild. You're not able
You're
to
not
get
that
as close.
close.
Mm-mm.
Somebody
Yeah.
says, Dr. Chill, I have a question about a wolf. My friend said that opposed to society information about wolves, they are intimidated of us humans and they are not so savage as people say. Is this true?
This is true. And the way I was explaining their
Yeah.
natural behavior is to create distance.
Hmm.
Their natural behavior, their default is not to cause a fight. It doesn't make sense for them to potentially get injured or to have a physical altercation. So if a wolf does actually show aggression, there's obviously a reason. They've been threatened, somebody has crossed their territory, their young are in danger, and as any species would, they would defend their young with their life. So in most cases, the wolf would prefer to stay away.
Yeah. So that
They're
song,
very
Hungry Like
skittish.
the Wolf, that was misleading.
Well, I'm not quite sure about all the lyrics, but a wolf does hunt
Yeah.
and they do hunt in an organized fashion and they
Yeah.
do have to eat. So there are circumstances where they would become aggressive in order to ensure their survival.
Hmm.
Their survival now is at peril in many places. So
That's interesting.
it's understandable that sometimes we would trigger the aggressive behavior because they feel very threatened.
Mm. Now, did you learn things from wolves that helped you understand dogs later on? Or are they, how close is that relationship between dogs,
Well,
like
as we
domestic
know,
dogs, I'm thinking about?
right, right. As we know, the domestic dog, as we know, our companion animal does come from the wolf. But wolves over the years have evolved, and canines have evolved with humans, and some of their behaviors have evolved with humans.
Hmm.
So, for example, dogs will scavenge because that's what they did in order to evolve with humans. They ate the garbage. We had a very symbiotic relationship with these wolves because they would protect us or they would alarm call if there was danger approaching. And in return, we let them eat our garbage. So we created a good relationship, but generally speaking, dogs will scavenge where wolves will actively, hunt. So that's one difference. But we do have a very similar profile depending upon how much breeding actually took place between the wolf and the, Chihuahua.
The Chihuahua. That's so interesting. All right. So you worked at the zoo, Central Park Zoo, and you were working with the ASPCA. Was that simultaneously while you were in New York?
It was, yes. I did an externship at the Central Park Zoo where I had the opportunity to work with farm animals, uh, and rabbits and ducks and some monkeys and some pocket pets, as we say, but they weren't pocket pets, but um, uh,
I've never heard that before.
yeah, the little animals that people have in terrariums and
Yeah. Yeah.
so forth. So um, I got some experience handling um, some animals that I would not normally handle,
Hmm.
as well as some alpacas. I did a study on alpacas
Alpacas.
because,
Wow.
yeah, so we're familiar. They look like camels, but they're not. And what was happening was one of the alpacas was spitting on the visitors.
I was going to ask you that because we in Seattle we used to go on this thing called Northwest Trek, which was in a place called Squim, Washington, and they would have llamas, and the llamas would spit on you if you didn't give them food or something like that. And so I wondered if alpacas did that too. Are they
Oh
related?
yeah,
They're related, I assume.
I imagine they are. I would have to look that up to be
Yeah.
absolutely certain, and how they're related. But there was a problem with one alpaca in particular that he would regurgitate. They
Yeah.
just eat and they regurgitate, and the spit is not just phlegm. It has quite a bit of density to it. And he would spit at visitors that one he didn't like for one reason or another. Perhaps they came too close, or he wasn't as social as his other cohorts, or they were teasing him. But yes, there was an issue with a spitting alpaca.
And how did they resolve that issue?
Well, we do in learning. There's a protocol that involves desensitization and counter conditioning, which you can apply that to humans and across the animal kingdom. What it allows an animal to do is it be exposed in small quantities to whatever the trigger is, whatever
Yeah.
the stimulus is that is annoying them or frustrating them or making them fearful. And then you pair it with something good. So, for example, if the alpaca was in the frame of mind as, oh, every time I see a visitor, they're mean to me and I don't like the visitor, I spit. So if you change the situation so that the visitor is actually paired with something positive, then you're changing over time the emotional or the conditioned response that that animal has when looking at the stimulus. So it's the same thing like with people, you see somebody who's always given you the evil eye or is, criticized you or has been mean to you for one reason or another. And then if for any reason you want a better relationship, this person then is then associated with chocolate or, bottle of wine or a pizza or something like that, so that you start to feel better
Yeah.
in the presence of this
Oh, you give it
stimulus.
to yourself, not to the other person.
No, the
Or
other
maybe,
person, that other person can give it to you,
yeah.
but if you don't really want anything from that other person, especially at the beginning, because you don't
Uh-huh.
trust them or they can't get too close, then some other manner of delivery
Mhm.
should be implemented so that at least you're getting the exposure of something positive while you're still in the presence of that
Wow. That's some therapy
trigger.
right there. I like
Right
that.
there.
Well,
We're people. We have relationships with people, and believe me, there are a lot of interpersonal relationships that can benefit by this protocol.
I wonder about that because, like with my cats, I have 4 cats. I wonder,
Wow.
when they do something. So, one of the things that we're having trouble with is that they scratch the furniture. And
Mm.
so we got them a scratching post, and they seem to prefer the furniture. So of course we're not going to get them declawed because that's inhumane. But we wonder, like, how do you discipline them, because they don't seem to respond when you yell at them or something like that. How is it? Is this the way you um, persuade them to change their behavior? What do you do?
Well, we want to first ask a couple of questions because
Yeah.
we want to get a full understanding of why they do what they do.
Mhm.
So, scratching is a normal behavior. We have to understand that the animals have a natural profile, natural set of behaviors that they would do. So, we try to, one, maybe adapt the environment so
Mhm.
that it's not an uh, misbehavior is obviously subjective, right? Because the
Yeah.
cats don't think that they're doing anything wrong. They're
No.
doing what they're supposed to do. They're
Yeah.
genetically predisposed to do that. It serves a purpose. It's scent marking,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
Scratching, it's hygienic. It allows them to clean and manicure their
Manicure their nails. Yeah.
tails. Exactly.
Yeah.
So what we would do in that case is say, okay, what is the material that
Hmm.
they prefer?
Hmm.
So we can give them scratching posts of carpet, of sisal, of cardboard, of wood, and they say, no, I prefer the leather couch. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So what we then do is, okay, well, we can't, we can try and make them like what we like,
Hmm.
but it's probably a better idea to offer them something closer to what they prefer.
Mm.
So then you can wrap the scratching posts with a substrate that they prefer so
Hmm.
that they're more inclined to go visit that area that we want them to go to.
Yeah.
And then we put that scratching post nearby the area that they're going to,
Hmm.
and we redirect their behavior. So when you say punishment, it usually the first choice people make is to try and stop the behavior.
Yeah.
But if you play tennis, you understand that there has to be some follow through on your stroke,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
Because if you just stop the behavior, it goes underground.
Oh.
Or the animal becomes stressed, or the
Hmm.
animal becomes frustrated, right? Because, somebody says, stop it, and you're still feeling stressed in the situation, it's not going to make you feel better or result in a long-term, consistent, positive change. So we create a scratching post, and some cats like to scratch like this, and some cats like to scratch horizontally, right? So we want to make sure, well, what does your cat prefer? Does he prefer vertical or does he prefer? Okay, so we get a vertical scratching post, we put it nearby where they like to go, and then we redirect the behavior when they start to do it on the couch to the other preferred scratching post. So we can put a little catnip on the scratching post. We can feed them some rewards when they use the scratching post. And we can also deter, because we're not there all the time, we can also deter the animal from using the couch by putting things like double-sided tape or putting some tin foil there, although some cats really like tin foil. So we would put some kind of material that would deter them from going to that spot
Ah.
or not allow them to go to that area altogether.
Wow.
So there are variations to a protocol specific for your particular animal, but you really want to understand why the animal is doing what they're doing and how to work with the animal in order to get change as opposed to just punishing the animal because they're going to do something else, you know? That behavior is going to come out somewhere else.
It's interesting. We have a very active chat room today. I can't even read all the questions that they're coming up with.
Oh, and by the way, I'm
Yeah.
sorry to interrupt you, but I do want to address the question with the monkeys on the wolf's back. I really hope
Yes.
there is nothing. I really hope there is nothing because that would be, not
Appropriate.
not only not appropriate, but not ethical or humane.
Goodness, I hope not. Let's see what this question is here. Question about animals. Dogs and cats saving their human when danger comes close, like a car running them on the streets, etc. We say all animals are intuitive creatures and they move by instinct. So do animals protect their human counterparts?
I would say most, depending upon the level of attachment and the level of familiarity and the quality of the relationship.
Mm-hmm.
So it would obviously depend on the particular situation, but as
Yeah.
a general rule, you see dogs that are quite protective of their territory, of their resource, which their person is their resource.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And we feed them, we walk them, we play with them, we give them affection. So it would be in their nature
Their best
to
interest.
protect something that is of value.
Yeah. Kamala says, I heard that raccoons are starting to adapt to become more domestic. Their features are getting cuter, so animals will like them better. Have you heard that at all?
No, I haven't, but my supervisor for my PhD, Dr. Suzanne McDonald, actually does some research on raccoons. So if you're interested in some more detail, I recommend you look up some of her published research.
Okay. And what is her
And
name again?
I don't know. I have Dr. Suzanne MacDonald.
Okay, that'd be interesting. I'll
She's
definitely read
at
about it.
York University in Toronto.
It would make sense because they're eating our garbage, just like the dogs did back in the day.
Well, I don't know. They're pretty darn cute to begin with, so I
They
don't
sure
know
are.
if they'll become cuter, but we have had to change our garbage receptacles in order to get one step ahead of them.
Yeah. Matt
Because
Wright
they're
says
quite
raccoons are
clever.
getting cuter so they can trick you and eat your face. No, I think they're generally not going to. Well, I don't know.
I
I've
don't
never been
know.
attacked
I
by a
had one on
raccoon.
my balcony and it was pretty big up close.
They get
And they're
big,
very
don't they?
protective. The
They
mothers are
are.
very protective. So
They are.
again, these are animals that have been forced to come into our neighborhoods because their habitat has been encroached upon.
Mm-hmm.
It's the same issue with the coyotes here in California, and I imagine some other states.
Yeah.
Fires and floods and residential properties and clearing of forest areas have caused these animals to come closer and closer to human inhabitants.
Mountain lions as well. We have the
Mountain lions. I was in
P22.
mountain.
Yeah.
Hmm. They're
Yeah.
desperate. They're not
Yeah.
doing it because they want to be with humans. Trust me. They don't want a relationship with humans. They're just looking
Yeah.
for food and water
So
and shelter.
interesting. What do you think? You worked at a zoo. What do you think about zoos? Is that a positive thing, negative thing, or is it both?
Loaded question, Joel.
It is, isn't it? Maybe it's too much. I don't know.
Well, there are many different kinds of zoos.
Yeah.
Obviously, you have something like the San Diego Wildlife Sanctuary or
Park.
Thank you very much. And you have, unfortunately, backroad zoos, that keep the animals as, a form of income.
Yeah.
Right. So there's all different qualities. Generally speaking, some of the zoos are there out of necessity because there's no more natural habitat for some of the endangered species to
Hmm.
live safely. So we're trying to keep a genetic pool, or at least some examples,
Yeah.
in order to breed. I don't know where we're going to put them, but to keep the species alive in some cases. But it is a necessity in many cases because there's no room on the planet for these animals and their natural habitat is decreasing every year.
Mm.
So my view on zoos is mixed, right?
Yeah.
I don't like to see animals in captivity, especially those that are supposed to run and roam for miles and miles and miles, and they have small enclosures. And on the other hand, some of these parks or these zoos are do some fascinating research, and they do provide some fascinating information on animals we otherwise wouldn't get. That being said, I much prefer the animals to be in their natural habitat and be wild and free.
One of the things about my about animals are pets. We have to keep our cats inside the house, otherwise they'll get hit by a car or eaten by a coyote or something like that. But they don't get to go outside. Dogs, you can take them for a walk. What do you recommend people do with cats? Do they need to be outside on a regular basis, or what is your recommendation with that?
Some cats just prefer to be inside, depends what they're used to.
Mhm.
If you get a feral cat that has been wild and stray and you try to keep them in the house, it's going to be a challenge.
Yeah.
If, however, you've had a cat since they've been a kitten and they really don't know very much else, then it's not a huge problem. That being said, all animals need mental enrichment, especially if they're intelligent and they live in groups. They need social enrichment, they need mental and physical enrichment. So, what I would recommend is one, give them a nice view of the outside. In some cases, some cats will get very aroused, but we can talk about that another time. But if you get a bird feeder or something to hang and you attract some wildlife to a window, there are cat trees, there are cat condominiums, there are shelvings that you can put and attach it to the window so they have a view of the outdoors and they see nature. Sometimes that's not available, so there are sets of videos that you can actually play, and some cats are fascinated by the enlarged squirrels, the enlarged birds on the screen.
I saw
Some
that on
cats
your YouTube channel. There was a cat with a big screen and he was just watching this bird.
Some cats are fascinated, and other cats, they don't care. So it all depends. There are enrichment toys,
Mhm.
there are puzzles, um, there are toys that one can play with by themselves. There are toys that you can interact with your cat, like a cat dancer or something like that. But there are a variety of enrichment toys out there that can provide a good amount of stimulation
Mhm.
for your cat. So they're not sleeping all day and then active when you're trying to rest at night. That's the thing. You see, they have a different circadian
They
rhythm than
certainly do. They certainly
so
do.
we want to make sure that we're well balanced so that they can be a little bit more active during the day and a little bit more tired in the evening when we're ready to call it a day.
Yeah. What are the biggest, I'm not going to call them crimes, but what are the biggest mistakes people make with their domestic pets that maybe they can correct, that they might not know about, like um, how
I'm
if,
going to
oh, go ahead.
Oh, pardon me. I'm going to answer that question. I just want to add one more thing to the cat question and
Yes.
enrichment. If the cat is cat friendly,
Hmm.
more than one cat in a household is always a good idea.
Oh, it
Some
is.
cats do not get along with other cats because
Yeah.
they've been solitary for a while and they just don't get along. But cats in nature usually and they live in a large group, especially females. So, two cats in many cases is better than one. They can play with one another and keep each other active.
I do want to
So
ask you about that because introducing a new cat into an environment where there's maybe two cats already, and that can be very difficult. But I do find that over time, a long period of time, you can get them to love each other and accept each other. What's the fastest way to do that?
So, first of all, sometimes it's not possible because a cat just doesn't want to have anything to do with another cat. So, we need to understand that there's a small percentage of cases
Mm-hmm.
that one cat just prefers to be the only cat in the household. In other circumstances, we want to make sure that the first introduction is positive. There is research that does support the fact that the first interaction bodes well or poorly for the rest of the relationship.
Really?
And
First
fast doesn't,
impressions.
right, exactly. And
Yeah.
fast doesn't necessarily mean best. You do want to introduce them gradually.
Mm-hmm.
Smell is a very important signal. The
Mm-hmm.
olfactory communication is very important for cats. So it's a good idea to introduce their smell first, then their sound, then their visual, and introduce them slowly and introduce it with paired with something positive.
Mm-hmm.
And you need to go at the pace of the slowest cat, just like the human relationship. One cat is like super friendly and they really want to be friends. They want to be friends right away. And the other cat is like, whoa, I need to take my time with this. So you want to introduce them at the pace of the slowest cat. And every pairing is an individual. So you really want to vary it according to the signals that they're providing.
The signals they're providing, that's a really important thing because I think a lot of times we misinterpret the signals that they're providing. Maybe they're too subtle. Maybe they're just not the way a human would act. How can we learn to understand our pets better?
One of the biggest errors, as to answer your previous question,
Yeah.
is to think that they're human.
Mm-hmm.
They're not.
They're not.
They're not.
Yeah.
And we put a lot of pressure on our animals to know what we're thinking, to know what we expect of them. And unless we teach them and take the time to teach them, they won't know.
Mm.
So patience is important, and a basic education or basic knowledge of the communication skills is important. How do animals communicate? How do cats communicate? How do cats show stress? Right? A lot of these animals will be very mysterious in showing pain, in showing stress, because they're not as um, dramatic
Mm.
in some
Mm-hmm.
cases
Yeah.
as humans. They're much more subtle. Their communication system is very effective if you're able to perceive the signals.
Mm.
And as humans, we talk a lot
Yeah.
and we often don't listen as much.
Yes.
So my recommendation would be just to observe your animal. Before you start expecting them to respond and behave in the manner in which you wish, get an idea of who they are. How do they respond to unfamiliar situations? You
Yeah.
know, a lot of my cases are dealing with reactive animals out of fear, out of unfamiliarity. There's so much going on in the city. If you live in the city, you have enormous amount of sound and traffic and triggers and things that they may or may not be familiar with, especially those that we're adopting out from shelters. So it's a good idea to get a good read on your animal and to understand who they are before you start expecting them to behave in a certain way. And patience is super important.
We have a question from one of our viewers. He says that when his dog is going to go for a walk, when he's going to take the dog for a walk, most of the time the dogs get all excited. His dog hides.
Oh,
Do
he's
you?
afraid.
He's afraid? You think he's afraid? He's a Chiweenie. I'm not sure what kind of dog that is, but anyway.
A small dog sounds like for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah. Chihuahua and a
Where do they
dachshund.
live?
I don't know. They live in Seattle.
And do they live in the city? Or do they live in the country? Or where'd they get the dog from? How old is the dog? How long have they
Oh,
had the
that's a good
dog?
question. That's a good
All these are
question.
important questions.
Yeah.
No, but if the dog hides,
Uh-huh.
then surely the dog is moving away from a perceived noxious,
Mm.
undesired
Mm-hmm.
situation. So either it's the equipment that they're using,
Mm-hmm.
or it's the location that they're going to,
Mm.
or it's something about the outdoor and the walk that is turning the dog off.
Let's see. Our longtime viewer Howard Aronin also has a question. They lost their pet. Their pet died in June. Is there a suggested grieving period? And it was a golden retriever. And they said, would it be appropriate to get the exact same breed? These are the questions.
Wow. Professionally, I wouldn't say that there is a particular grieving time. That it is a very personal decision.
Mm-hmm.
And I can speak about my own personal experience. I too had a golden retriever for 12 and a half years. And it took me a little while to, one, go through the grieving process. And then there's some guilt that you think someone's taking their place, or maybe
Yeah.
your heart can't handle it, or you
Yeah.
just don't want to go through that pain again. It's extremely painful when a pet, especially one that you've bonded with so strongly, passes.
Mm.
However, intellectually, there is nothing, no one, no other animal that is ever going to take the place of that particular animal, ever. And there are so many animals that need homes. We have a homeless population that is out of control. So, personally, I can't tell anybody else what to do, but the best way for me to help a grieving heart is to save another life.
Like that. I like that a lot. Tracy Hinckley says, I have a pandemic puppy.
Oh.
He was not used to people coming to our home. Now he's
Mhm.
very reactive when people come over. Any advice to help him feel calm when we have friends over?
That is a very common question, and many of my cases are exactly about that kind of situation. So there are many ways and levels on how to deal with something like this. And I don't want your audience to get the impression that you can just do one thing and everything is going to be fixed.
Mm-hmm.
This is not the way behavior changes. Sometimes miraculously you make one change and woo, like it's all much better.
Yeah.
However, in most cases, gradual introduction is necessary.
Mm-hmm.
And pandemic puppies have been dealing with, well, there's nobody coming to the house. So everybody outside the house is a stranger, is potential threat, and everything is cool. I just have my family, my close ones, my familiars, and life is grand.
Yeah.
Then people started having visitors, and it's like, who's this? Who's that? Who's that? They don't have the ability to cope with dealing with new people coming into the house, especially if they're a breed that is naturally protective or has some territorial behavior. So, in a general way, what I would recommend would be to make sure there's as much distance as possible from the person coming in, right? Because, anything scary is scarier when it's right in front of your face, right? You see something bizarre 200 feet away, it's not as threatening as if it's around the corner. So you want to make sure that your dog has enough space
Yeah.
not to feel encroached upon and not to increase the arousal and potential aggression. And then you want to make sure your visitors don't try to make friends too quickly. Nobody wants to be a friend with a threat. So just chill, keep your distance, and then offer your dog something really delicious, something really fun,
This
maybe a
is what we were
special
talking about before.
toy.
Yeah.
Exactly. It all comes around.
Yeah.
But it's important to note that if you are already afraid, And if you've already decided that this person is no good and he's already triggered my biggest fear and I'm all poofed up and I'm all aggressive because I want to defend myself, then you've waited too long or you've made the situation too stressful. That's why distance is super important. And
Mm,
you want to make sure that the dog is calm enough to accept the type of learning that you're offering.
yes, that makes sense. Richard says, my cat is about 9 years old and all of a sudden needing a lot of petting and attention. Every time I go into the kitchen, she follows me into petting position and meows. What's happening?
So my first recommendation, always check with your veterinarian. Yeah, you
Yeah.
always want to make sure that you have addressed any potential underlying medical factors that might be contributing to the behavior.
Mm,
So if you see a sudden change in your animal, you need to consult with your veterinarian to make sure that everything physically is okay with them. That is the first course of action because behavior is the default. The second thing would be if everything is a-okay, we understand that over time, animals change, people change, we get older, perhaps we become a little bit more needy. We want to make sure that the appetite and the diet is appropriate for the change of the animal and make sure that we have not reinforced the cycle of behavior, right? So
mm,
sometimes something appears, we give in, and then we wonder why the behavior continues to reappear. Well, because the behavior is being reinforced, so that's the best way for it to repeat. So it might be, I would check with your veterinarian, make sure that everything is okay. Maybe his diet needs to be changed a little bit, but maybe he also wants a little bit more attention. And there is some research that does show meowing is not cat to cat. Meowing is cat to person. It is a communication signal that solicits attention. So attention could be often is, can I have more food, please?
yeah, I have one cat that will take me into the kitchen. He's got plenty of food, but he always takes me into the kitchen. And I'm not sure what he wants. I'm like, what do you want? What are the basic desires of a cat? Like, what do they need?
Cat needs exercise. Cat needs mental stimulation.
Mhm.
Cat needs interaction. In some cases, some cats are solitary. It's just like people. You have introverts and then you have
Yeah,
extroverts,
yeah,
right? So you want to be providing what your cat needs. Some cats, if they're older, they just want to be left alone and sleep in the sun.
yeah.
And if
It's
your
different. You're
cat is
right about
sick,
this that being prescriptive about every single animal because the main thing I think is being able to understand what they're trying to communicate. We have one cat that doesn't get along with the other cats, and one of the new cats likes to roll around in front of that cat.
oh,
And but when I think, oh, it's trying to be nice, but then it gets aggressive. Do you know
so
why it does that? Rolls around like that?
well, these are one of the main differences between dogs and cats. I mean, there are many, 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 many differences, obviously. But as so far as signaling goes,
Yeah.
so everybody thinks it's like a dog, when a dog shows their underbelly, it's
Yeah.
very submissive,
Yeah,
it's
that's
pleased
what I thought,
with
but it
belly
doesn't.
rubs.
Yeah.
But for a cat, it's very different. Basically, when a cat shows their belly, it's an opportunity for all their claws and all their tools to be exposed.
Really?
In many cases, and there are always exceptions to every rule,
Yeah.
but in most cases, if it is not an invitation. So when a
Really?
cat does that, it is not an invitation, and many people can get scratched pretty badly if they go and they think it's an invitation.
Yes.
But yeah, exactly, like predator on a prey. So
Wow.
that might be
So
between two
interesting.
cats, it's like maybe don't come closer because we're going to have a little bit of a conflict. But that is a main signaling difference between dogs and cats, one of them.
Wow, I never knew that. The way the cats communicate with each other, it seems almost like they have telepathy or something.
Well, it's
You
the
know?
olfactory. It's the olfactory
Oh, really?
level that we are not that it's not available to us in most cases unless it's
interesting.
urine and it's
overt
strong.
like that. Yeah.
But they will do a lot of facial pheromone rubbing. They will communicate with one another where they were and how they are through facial rubbing on certain furniture, on certain locations. This is how they communicate. Yeah.
This is so interesting. I unfortunately we're at the end of the show.
Oh, that went fast.
Yeah, and the chat room has all kinds of different questions, but I think they're going to have to ask you. I don't know. They're going to have to hire you or something.
Well, they have my website. Yeah. Please feel free to visit my website, www.drjillgoldman.com, and there's a contact sheet that you can complete. It'll take a few minutes, and then I'll be able to respond.
Right, and that's in the show notes, the website, and then also your TikTok is also in there too. But there's the website, drjillgoldman.com. Check that out. And there's a lot of information there too. And there's also you can even get what you were saying about toys and different kinds of feeding bowls and things that will make the cat or the dog
both
have more fun. Excuse me, have more fun in this world.
They usually work for their food.
Yeah.
Give them an opportunity to do that.
I got one more question because it's my wife. Our little dog was left by my brother who passed away. And when he was found, his nails had grown into his paws, and animal control had to remove a nail. He seems to have a really painful foot, but the vet doesn't see anything wrong with him. Do you think it's a psychological thing?
Good question. So you want to make sure, be certain. So sometimes things are overlooked and it has to be checked by a couple of pair of eyes. Just saying it's a good idea. That being said, if in fact my dog came to visit.
All right, there's your dog. Oh my gosh. What is your dog's name again? I forgot.
Andromeda.
Andromeda.
She's new adoptee.
Oh,
and she has a backstory we can discuss another time. But back to the nail.
Yeah.
So what happens sometimes is that if an animal does experience a medical pain, there's also litter box issues as well. But if they have a medical physical pain that is then remedied, the behavior associated with that physical problem emancipates, becomes independent of the actual cause and persists. Wow. Even though the physical ailment has been relieved.
It's so interesting.
It might actually be some residue from the pain that the dog was feeling, but we could work on that if that in fact is the case. But always check to make sure, be certain that there's no medical reasons.
I wonder also if it can be associated with an emotional, loss that the dog had because the owner died.
Well, if an experience is emotionally charged sufficiently, then it doesn't have to happen more than once in order for it to have an effect, a long-term effect. But again, there is help that is available to, if not completely change the behavior, at least make it better.
It's great to know. Well, thank you so much for being on the show. This has been a real treat to have you here. It's
Likewise.
Wonderful. Great. And it's also wonderful, just the work that you're doing. I want to thank you for doing that, because that is, our pets are so important to us, and hopefully we're important to them. Hopefully we make their life better as well, because sometimes people just focus on what the pet does for me and not on what can I do for the pet. And that's general relationships in general with humans as well, right? We can learn a lot from animals with our human relationships. All right, I'm going to play a little song here. We got a thing called the dance break, and we're just going to say goodbye to everybody out there. Thanks everybody on TikTok for being here too. We couldn't put your comments on the show, but really grateful to have you all here. And we're going to dance it out. So thanks, Dr. Jill. Appreciate it.
It's been a pleasure, Joel. Thank you very much.
All right. All right, this is Gates cover. Thanks everybody for being here. Really appreciate it. Dr. Jill.
Thank you very much. I'll go take my dog out now.
All right.
Rusted brandy in a diamond glass. Everything is made from dreams. Time is made from honey, slow and sweet. Only the fools know what it means. Temptation, no temptation.
Thanks everybody for being here.
Temptation.
We'll see you all next week.
I can't resist.
And pass this around because we want people to know. People want to know how they can relate better with their pets. And check out drjillgoldman.com for more information and her YouTube channel.
He knows that I am
It's all in the show notes.
but I must pay.
This is Paloma B.